Hello, everyone, and welcome back to If Margaritas Could Talk, the Over 40 Chronicles podcast. I'm your host, Tracy Black, and today I have an incredibly special guest joining me. She is a global world traveler and author of 2 published books, one called When in Rome, and the second one is The Secrets of Oak Island. I would like you to please join me in welcoming Pamdiana Jones to the podcast. Hi, Pam. We are so happy to have you joining me today. So welcome.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here and so happy to meet all of you and share my story. Thanks for inviting me on.
I would love to kick it off today by starting to talk about your travel journey. I recently did, I think it was 2 episodes ago, I did a travel wanderlust episode. And so that's why you're here. I want to know how you got started and then sort of how you ended up traveling for, going from 3 months to years. So take it away. Tell me all about it.
Wonderful. Yes. I am from the greater Los Angeles area in California. So it's a suburb girl. My grandparents were British, but they lived in Egypt and in South Africa for 10 years. And then my mother went to Kenya and Tanzania in the 1970s. So I just thought, it's in my blood. And I find myself at 22 with my moving truck stolen full of everything I own and not quite sure what to do next. I moved to a ski resort town and I meet this lovely man, Jay, that we're not dating or anything. He asks me, or I ask him, what are you doing after the snow melts? And he says, I'm going surfing in South Africa. And my jaw just dropped. I go, that sounds amazing. And he goes, you want to go? So I found out the ticket was $1,200 and I had $1,175 in my bank account. So I literally had $25 left after I handed him my cash. And he was just shocked. He said, everybody has excuses as to why they can't go. He goes, you're really going? I go, yeah, you really meant the invite? So we were still getting to know each other and off we flew to South Africa, and a 28-hour flight and then a 29-hour train ride. We ended up in Cape Town and we bought a car there and drove around South Africa, and he taught me the cheapest ways to travel in the entire world. I don't know if I could ever do this kind of traveling again. He had said a bag of white rice is $2 for an entire week, and that you can have breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So I'm like, white rice for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And he taught me to wash my clothes in the bar with a bar of soap in the sink. So we were really roughing it and sleeping in the car a bunch. And then his sister decides to get married, so he doesn't want to miss out, and he runs home. And I thought, I'm still having fun out here, and I have a group of friends and things. So I stayed it was supposed to be a 3-month trip to South Africa, and that was it. Well, he taught me to save so much money. Let me back up a little bit of how I traveled with even $25. We left a month later, and I sold my car for $3,300. So I left with $3,300, which by today's standard, maybe that was more like 9 or 10,000, Yeah. But so he had taught me to travel for so cheap that I'd only spent $900 in the whole 3-month trip. So on the way home, I asked the stewardess, can I get off the flight in Malaysia, in Kuala Lumpur? And she said, yeah, your ticket's good for a year. So I didn't know what Jay had bought. So I ended up going all through Thailand and all through Malaysia, Singapore, and I went through all of Indonesia, Sumatra, Java, Bali, Lombok. And then I thought Australia's right there. I'd only spent another $1,000 in another 4.5, 5 months. So I still had $1,500 to go to Australia with. And I began working along the way. And that took me over to New Zealand as well. And I just love that side of the world. So I stayed for a year in each, and it turned into a 3-year journey instead of 3 months. So that's how it went.
So exciting. And, to learn that you have that heritage, that background, and then to be able to back then when you went, what year was that you went back?
1995. So 95. Before email. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Before you were able to communicate back home and everybody knew you were safe.
Right.
The funny concept of it is traveling now obviously is so much different, but I think of it from what an incredible experience. One of the things I wanted to know in your book is you had come across some cultural awakenings that you experienced. I'd love to hear more about some of those things.
Well, I just was at a point in my life where I wanted to talk about politics, religion, science. And none of my friends wanted to. They were like, oh, you got a nice haircut. What'd you have for lunch? And I was annoyed with that. Who cares if I got a haircut? Who cares what I had for lunch? And the more I traveled in South Africa, they were asking each other, what did you eat for lunch? And oh, you got a nice haircut. In Indonesia, they were saying the same thing. And I was invited to locals barbecues quite a bit. So I would notice that they're all playing their guitar, singing Hotel California, whether they spoke English or not. So I just thought it really tied the world together to me that, oh, everyone just cares enough about each other to ask what they had for lunch. And, oh, I noticed you had a haircut. Means I care about you. It was another way of saying I care about you. So now I sink into it and go, I had a turkey with mustard and a little basil on top. I'll tell them exactly what I had. So if someone cares enough to ask, I'll tell them, but I think that was a bit of an awakening to just tie us all together as humans, that everywhere I went, everybody would ask the same questions and wanted to always have a barbecue.
Well, it's actually funny that you mentioned that, because even right now, like here we are today, and the surface level, it's so weird. Like, I don't know if you find this or not, but everything just seems to be such from a surface level concept. Nothing is really like, people are not present. So they sort of just like check in on the basics. There's no real depth to what happens now. So when you do travel and people are removed from that and their cultural engagement is community, that's hugely different than how, we live as, in Western civilization. So when I think about some of those things, I 1,000% agree. I mean, myself, I've done a lot of traveling around the world as well. Not quite to your extent for that length of period of time at one, but it's really different, isn't it? And it kind of, changes your perception. Like you mentioned, when you come home, you're more aware, I think. And,
yes.
And then it changes how you interact with other people. Even though people back at home still operate the same way, your interaction becomes greatly, vastly different.
I ended up waiting. I came home with $7 to my name. So I grabbed a quick waitress job. And a lot of my friends were stuntmen in the Los Angeles area. And one of them pulled me aside and he said, I've traveled all over the world as well, but he goes, don't be discouraged when nobody cares and they don't ask you anything about it. He goes, they just don't get it. They just don't know. He goes, what you did was super brave. And, it was kind of flattering because he said, you basically, any man's lucky to have a girl as adventurous as you that just went and did it by yourself. He goes, I've gone all over the world, but with a camera crew and all this stuff where I'm not doing it by myself. So he knew, and I hadn't been able to put it into words yet that I had grown so much and didn't understand. It takes a while to process everything you've been through and seen when you come back from a world journey like that. And everybody's just still slumped over the bar looking at the baseball game. So it was an odd transition to come home and see all my friends still the same 3 years later. And I was the one that was completely different,
That's awakening, huge awakening. Now, when it comes to travel, did you ever find yourself in any sort of unconventional situations? Like, walk me through any of the, because of course, each location that you found yourself in and exploring, I'm sure, put you in some types of, especially as a solo traveler as well. Walk me through some of that.
Well, the very first night, there's a stabbing on the train. That's all my fault. So that's on page 1 of my book. If anybody wants to grab their attention, Jay and I grabbed 3rd class tickets. We don't realize the dangers that we're in. We walk in and it's all dark faces. We just jump on to have an adventure and they're looking at us like, this is our spot. Why are you in our spot? And it's a 28-hour train ride to Cape Town. So we're making friends with everybody. We're from LA. We have every race of friends and everything, but to go to a country this was 1995. So Nelson Mandela had just been voted president in 1994, and he'd made promises to the locals that if you were a chauffeur, you get the limousine. If you were a maid, you get the house that you were just cleaning. that didn't come true. So there was a bit more tension there towards the racial things. So they were like, what are you doing on our side? So we made some friends nearby where we were sitting, and I went to use the facilities in the dining car, and I met 2 white South Africans, and they said, we were just coming to get you. The nighttime gets extremely dangerous and someone always gets stabbed. And they were police officers that delivered cars. So we went, what? And they said, we're going to insist that you spend the night in our cabin with us, and 2 of our workers will go take your spot there. So we selfishly didn't ask a single question, didn't worry about the workers. They insisted that the workers would know what to do. And it turns out a big, huge, 6'5" bald black man came up to the little 5'4" worker guy with a knife to his throat. And the little man turned it around and made the big guy stab himself. So luckily he had moves that saved his own life. But I make note in my book, like, wow, the train never even stopped. Is that bad guy okay? Is he a father? Did he die? Like, I still don't know what happened. I'll never know. But it just smacked me in the face. Oh, we're not. It's like the chaos theory when you step on a butterfly's wing and 3 years later there's a hurricane somewhere else around the world. It's like, oh, we're going to cause hurricanes everywhere we go if we're not careful. So we better, whether we agree with what apartheid is or anything, we better do what is expected of us in a new culture. We're not here to change what they're doing. And it's more complicated than a tourist can understand in a quick trip. So I realized, I'm here to observe what I'm finding, not stand here with a microphone of what I believe, So I became a little quieter of a person and learned to watch and observe people,
So interesting. So interesting. When I used to work in aviation back 100 years ago. And one of the things that we teach is, situational awareness because of, flying and so on. And the fundamentals, I've always taken that with me wherever I go. It's kind of a weird, sometimes I think it's like OCD, but at the same time, I'm going, well, no, it's just my training and my teaching. And again, like when it comes down, I've been in Afghanistan, I had to go down there as manager and we had crews down there. And, when you're going into countries where there is turmoil and so on, there tends to be that, we sort of put it to the back of our mind, especially at that time, right?
Yeah.
When you're going, the world was so different.
This is pre 9/11 and pre Columbine and all that. So you just don't.
You didn't think anything of it. And you go, and it's not naivety, I don't think. I think it's just like, it's a train, it's a public place, we're going to be safe. There's many people on here, so on and so forth.
I saw women and children in there, so I was like, that's fine then,
Yeah,
and I was told, no, they will look away, because I tried to get some eye contact with some of them, and they were like, nope. So they knew what was coming and that there was nothing to do to prevent it. But it wasn't just man and against us, it was beasts as well. We got out of the car in South Africa at an elephant farm, and the elephants just started chasing us. So we had to run and jump over bushes and big old cloud of dust over our faces. And we just, we veered towards our car while they veered left on our last few steps. So, getting chased by a herd of elephants is definitely on my resume now too. And I just have this optimistic, childlike wonder. I hope I outgrow it sooner or later, but I just think everything's going to be fine all the time. So I don't know if I'm bringing that to me or if my guardian angel's exhausted and they're going, Pam, slow down a bit. So, I mean, my kids can't read my book until they're 30 is my joke, because I'm hitchhiking in there and I'm young, I'm drinking, trying some things. So it's, but it's more, they can't read it because of the worldly things. You talk about attempted rape and war zones and things like that I don't think my kids are ready for, but the rest of the book is sarcastic humor throughout everything I learned. So that's how I normally think. People have told me that they feel like they're having a conversation with me when they read the book, because they go, that's how you talk. You wrote it all down the same way. I went, yeah, you write in your own voice, right? That's what authors do.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Solo travel is commendable. I really look up to people who have the ability to be able to solo travel, because I don't think I have it in my gene. I think, well, that's actually not true. like I've done some solo trips on my own, but not extensive, like worldly trips. One of my bucket list items is like Morocco. I have not been there yet. It is there. It's on top.
That's on my list too.
So when it comes to solo travel, can be really daunting especially nowadays, daunting for women. What advice do you think you could give our listeners who want to take on that journey to be, the nomadic lifestyle is a really big sort of trend right now in terms of travel. What advice do you think you could give to our listeners?
I would say, whether you know it or not, you're going to learn to trust your gut instinct. If you have a little bite in your stomach that kind of goes, don't get in that taxi, you're going to learn one way or another. Don't get in that taxi. They'll take you out somewhere and rob you, or you will go, thanks, I'm going to catch the next one. Whether you hurt that guy's feelings or not isn't important. You're important. But I'd say trust the locals. The world is a wonderful place. That small robbing might happen now and then, but I've heard and lived through so many stories where people go, I was so sick on a bus, and these two women took me into their grandma's house and nurtured me, and we didn't speak any of the same languages. They didn't know my name. I don't know theirs. And they nursed me to health and they stayed for 2 weeks for free. So I hear way more of those stories than the robbery ones. But listen to the locals. We recently had, there's a friend that I meet, Jimmy, in the book. He's Australian, but he lives in Indonesia. He's working at the time. So he shows me around a little bit of Indonesia and teaches me a bit of the culture of the small things, like they don't point with their finger. They wave their hand like this. It's a little more kindness. Say, sit down this way instead of sit down over there, So little things like that I learned. But then when Jimmy brought his family here 25 years later, my husband and my kids, and we were showing around him and his wife and his kids, he insisted on things that we just went, absolutely not. It was, I don't know if you're familiar with Los Angeles, but it's some of the heaviest traffic in the world. At about 3 p.m. on Friday afternoon, he goes, well, we just want to go check out LA. And it's like, yeah, I can't let you do that. You're going to be stuck in gridlock. Yeah. You want to just go up there and check it out with, at least go because you're spending the weekend there, not because you just do that another day when you leave in the morning. No way. So he wouldn't listen. And his whole trip was up. This stinks, that stinks, this stinks. I'm like, you wouldn't listen to a word I said. So for him,
it's funny. The few times I've been to California, like a second home to me. And so, one of the things that I can't stand is the traffic. It's terrifying for me. My husband drives, he knows how to handle the traffic and stuff. But I'm like, I just get scared. I'm like, I have to keep my eyes closed. I'm like, this is too much for me. I can't handle how fast these people are going. And it feels like everyone's going 1,000,000 miles an hour. And it's terrifying, but I digress. But
I grew up there and it's daunting.
It is daunting.
I live south now down in Laguna Beach area, but my husband drives up for work all the time. So are you going to be okay?
When we talk about scary moments of travel, I have a few scary moments of travel, but I will say this. My best friend and I did a trip to Thailand and Cambodia back in 2009. And we were there for backpacking for quite a while. And, my train ride experience was nothing worse. It involved It involved a bottle of scotch and card playing and people from France, and
that's more like it.
And it was a little crazy, and the hangover situation was not good the next day after traveling for 15 or whatever 20 hours it was. But anyway, it's funny how we can, when you are traveling, scary moments happen. And back to kind of what you were saying about the cab ride, my girlfriend, her daughter and her best friend went over to Thailand, I think 2 years ago. And of course they're younger, right? And got into a cab, this cab driver's taking them wherever. And she's like, you're going the wrong way. I know where you're supposed to be going. And where are you taking us? Get us out of this cab right now. And, just to have those instinctual things as women, there's a lot of stuff that kind of goes on.
Don't ignore it.
And exactly it. When your intuition kicks in, you kind of have to just, you have to know how to react in that moment. And it's the fight or flight that sort of kicks in. But, any kind of scary moments, I don't know. I wanted to ask you, is there anything particular in any of the other places that you visited that sort of were like that? It was scary enough for you to say, maybe I should pack up and go home.
Are you ready to add a little sparkle to your life? Let me introduce you to Kindred Fusion, the ultimate destination for permanent jewelry. That's right, no more worrying about clasps or losing your favorite pieces. With Kindred Fusion, you can enjoy beautiful, seamless jewelry that is as unique as you are. Imagine a stunning bracelet or necklace that feels like a second skin. Sounds amazing, right? At kindredfusion.com, you can explore a gorgeous selection of styles that fit every personality and occasion. So head on over to kindredfusion.com today and discover the magic of permanent jewelry.
Oh, a bunch of those as well. You don't have to go on a 3-year journey without thinking of home quite often. But I knew, because my mother had been in the 70s and then she never went anywhere else really. So I can't say that, but a quick cruise or something like this. But I thought, I don't want to go home and save up for the plane ticket from where I'm already nearby. But like Australia, I learned to scuba dive, and my first thing down, I've just sliced my hand on the chain going down, and a big cloud of my blood comes out, and I'm looking at it float through the ocean, and through it, I see a shark coming towards me. And I don't know you have to get out of the water. I'm just pissed. Like, I just took this class. I've spent $300. My sister was with me at that time. So I'm like, I don't want to scare her. So I just keep looking for the shark, and I'm just gushing blood into the water for an hour. And I don't know. I'm just ringing that dinner bell. So more than naivety, I'm a dum-dum. And I have to decide as a memoir author, do I share all my dumb moments? I decided, yeah, I'm going to share them all, because these are real things that happen. I don't want to write what I wish happened. I want to write what really happened. So I have to share embarrassing moments and dumb moments. And all the time after something like that, I'm like, what am I doing so far from home? Maybe I should go home. So like, I got lucky. Some shark didn't bite me immediately, or my sister. Like, how dangerous was that?
You didn't end up shark food, which is good.
Right?
Yeah.
But the cover of my book, let me just show you here. I pretend like I'm Indiana Jones. So my title, my author pen name is Pamdiana Jones. It's called When in Rome, ROAM, but like you're roaming around. But look at my face. I've just been shoved from a bungee jump platform after I'm up there, and I changed my mind. I go, I don't think this is for me. My friend goes, okay. And then he shoves me. Well, I'm just worried more than a normal person. Like, did you even clip me in correctly? Because we just said I wasn't going, and you stood up so quickly that you went, oh, okay, no big deal. So I'm just terrified of, like, what have I done? And am I ever going to see my mom again? And so after moments like that, I put it on the cover because it's me fumbling my way through the weirdest situations that nobody gets shoved from the bungee platform. Why did that happen to me? The weirdest things always happen to me. So after each moment, I would go, should I go home? And I'm, well, no, that was okay. I'm okay. And then the next thing happens. Oh, should I go home? No. Let's push through that.
So it was a consistent amount of conversation with yourself.
Yes, back and forth a lot.
Should I carry on, or do I keep going because I survived this, survived that? I get it. I've been there. I get it. When you just happened to mention your book, which I am so thrilled about. I want to talk about the inspiration. So when it came, so you've got the travel nail behind you, you decide that you're going to put it all into a memoir. And I want to know what was the inspiration for you turning it into the comedy travel memoir, is my understanding of, sort of walk me through that a little bit.
Okay. For 20 years, I'd been telling stories, like, oh, I got chased by a herd of elephants that time. If somebody had an elephant story, I've got one too. And here it is. And, oh, I just learned to scuba dive. Oh, here's my first scuba diving thing. So I was always able to talk about my travels, but I would always have it in a way that, look at what a dum-dum I am. And everybody would just bust out laughing. And every single time I would tell a funny story about my travels, people go, you should write a book. And I thought, little old me, nobody's going to care what I have to say, And then that book and movie Eat, Pray, Love came out. And I while I loved it and I admire her story as well, and we're separate women, I picked up a book that I wanted to read about going around the world. And most of it was her divorce. And then on her travels, I found her adventures to be a little bit more mild than mine, which most people do. She rode a bike and she ate spaghetti and she meditated. Those are wonderful things and eye-opening in her life. But I'm shoved from a bungee jump platform. I'm chased by a herd of wild elephants. I'm scuba diving with a shark that's gushing blood. So I knew I was way more of a clumsy, awkward, cringeworthy Indiana Jones type that maybe there's more women like me. She doesn't drink a beer. She doesn't say a cuss word. There's a beer and a cuss word in my book for sure. So I think there's maybe more women like me. And I thought, why not me? All she did was write it down and then it went out there to the world and the world accepted it in a new way. So I I wrote the book I wanted to read when I picked up her book.
Right.
So I thought, let me put mine out there. There's enough success for all of us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. The book writing aspect of, and not only that, think of it from this perspective, like your little bit of your legacy, when you leave that behind, that's connected to you, which your children and their children, and, that will continue on, which is so fundamental, I think, when it comes to leaving a legacy. And, like you said, they're not allowed to read it 30, which they're going to be, what, Mom, you did this?
There's a few embarrassing moments in there that I cringed that my mom had to read it. But at one point I have a sexual three-way with a skydiver and another woman. And my boss climbs in through the window because he's asked the guy to go fishing. So that I would not have wrote about that, but it's too funny. I had to put aside my humiliation because comedy won out. So one day my kids are going to have to read that too, but hopefully they'll be old enough to realize, your mom was just a crazy kid once too,
Oh, that's so funny. So you got it's a little scandalous in there as well.
Yeah,
too,
which I would not have written about that, but comedy gold that now I have to go face my boss at work and see the humiliation of, all right, the one time I tried to be wild here, it's advertised throughout the whole entire town, so do I still go back into work or do I run home like we talked about? Is this big enough to go home? No, it's pretty funny. Okay, I can live with this.
Oh my gosh, like the older, wiser version of yourself now. Do you think you change anything that you did back then? Is there anything that would pop into your mind?
Not.
No.
Before my truck got stolen, the prologue and the epilogue revolve around the singer Rod Stewart. I'm a waitress in Los Angeles. I'm 20 years old and I'm waiting on Rod Stewart, but I don't know this. I think he's a guy that looks like Rod Stewart and he's pretending to be Rod Stewart so he can flirt with me. So at one point he goes, do you want to be in a video? And I went like, oh, brother, this guy's a real big faker. So I go, no, but if you'd like to be a busboy, go ahead and apply here. And he hits face. He doesn't laugh. He kind of goes like, and the look was, you're the only person in Los Angeles that does not want to roll in film. So he goes, okay, never mind. Well, I start to doubt myself. Like maybe he really is Rod Stewart. And I come back out with lipstick on, ready to say, yes, I'll be in your video. And he's long gone. So I missed my moment there. But I thought from now on, I'll never say no to anything ever. I'm going to say yes to everything and then figure out if that's who I really am,
Yeah.
So I thank him dearly. Thank you, Rod Stewart. You changed my life in that moment,
So it really was Rod Stewart then.
Yeah, it said on the tag when he paid up at the front, not with me, and it said Rod Stewart on his credit card slip.
Oh my gosh! So that moment, in a flip.
Yeah. So gone.
But you know what? You're here to tell about it, and you put it in a book, right? So it happened.
It did change my life. Yes, at one point, I'm at a farm in New Zealand, and somebody goes, "Who wants to ride the bull?" And I stick my hand up before I can even think about it. Now I'm like, "Oh my God, I got to ride this bull." So I'm riding a bull in New Zealand because of Rod Stewart. So
get out of here. You got on you're really?
I did. And I should have probably said no, but it was okay. It turned out okay.
Well, you're still here. Thank God.
That's what I mean. Like this book is crazy and it's all true. And I'm writing my second one now. So I'm nearly done with my second. So there's more to come. And I think there's a third book too, because this first one I write, I go around the world solo. Well, the second one, I meet some of the friends that I met from book one in their home countries. They've all invited me to come stay with them. And then one gal asks, would you like to go to the South Pacific Islands with me while I study? So we go to Easter Island, Tahiti, Moorea, Samoa, Fiji, and back to Australia, New Zealand. So I'm nearly done writing that one now. So that's all the friends you've met from book one. And this really happens as well. And then I think I've got a third book. Once me and my husband and our kids start traveling, weird things always happen to us too. So I'm like, well, maybe I can do a trilogy here.
A trilogy. There you go. When you're talking about the best travel experiences, I want to know, what do you think is your top 5 of any of the places that you visited where you were like, these are the standout number one, they have the best memories, I had the best experiences, the cultural experience, the any of those. So start with number 5 and work your way to 1.
Oh gosh. I don't know if I can put them in such order like that, but
do your
to
best.
Me, having my grandparents and my parents go to Africa. Africa was the final frontier for me. So that was the first place I'd ever went. So just to be around the lions and the elephants and the rhinos and the people I met there was just stunning. And I'd never thought twice about Asia. So when I landed, I spent the most time in Indonesia and I learned quite a bit of the language. So I went to a lot of the non-touristy places. So I learned to speak Indonesian quickly. And it's the funniest country I've ever been. So I feel like maybe Africa was an adventurous place and Indonesia was the funniest. I mean, things that we just wrap ourselves in bubble wrap and go about our lives. They just run through red lights and little babies and dogs are on their little moped. One lady had a 2x4 across her head and everybody was piling bricks on it. And I realized she's the wheelbarrow. Like she's just walking with all the bricks on her head, but way too many, like 50 bricks. You're like, what are you okay? But this is, they just make do with what they got there. So just fun, funny, kind people. I've been back 4 times to Indonesia over my life now. So the last time I just took my kids, so they loved it too. But I'd say New Zealand is a big standout as well. There's so much to do, sports-wise, from bungee jumping and skydiving and whitewater rafting and horseback riding and bull riding and things like that, for a little country, they really pack a punch. For every town has something crazy and fun to do. So, not in the book. I'd say India is one of my favorites just because I began importing women's clothing from India. So I ran that company for 11 years. And we were just treated so well. And so the hospitality of the Indians and the food there is just amazing. So, and it's everything, the brightness of the colors, the poverty versus the wealthy. Nothing will smack you in the face more than India. If you have a travel bug, that's the place to see it all,
Yeah. I have to agree with that for sure. There's I love that. Nothing will, smack you in the face like that. That describes it to a T. Like I never thought of it from that perspective, for sure. The one thing that I always sort of think about when I'm getting ready to do any kind of traveling is, preparation. Where am I going? I had posted on the travel episode that I talked a lot about the safety component and so on, especially for anybody that's traveling. But I have this ridiculous, stupid OCD thing where anywhere I'm going, I check out their mapping system on Google, which allows me or anybody in the world to see the areas of safety and the areas that are not so safe, so that I don't book hotels and stuff like that there. That's my number one biggest thing that I do, which my husband goes, it's kind of, I'm like, it's not though, because as a person who, has been literally all over the world, similar to you, you just don't know where you're going to end up. And today travel is so different today than it was 10, 15, 20 years ago. Right. So yeah, I am just ecstatic that we were able to bring you on the show today and get an opportunity for you to bring us into your journey.
Thank you.
And, I look forward to hearing more. And I also look forward to, your new book and other books coming that are following it. But I wanted to say that is it for today's episode of If Margaritas Could Talk. I would like to thank our guest, Pamdiana Jones, for joining us and sharing her stories today. You can find her book, When in Rome, ROAM, and others in your Amazon store online. So thank you guys so much for tuning in.
Thank you.
Don't forget to keep listening as we have some other incredible guests joining us in the coming weeks. If you have some incredible travel stories and you would like to share, please drop a comment or send us a message. We would love to hear from you. Until next time.
Thanks, everybody.
Keep laughing, keep living, and remember, traveling solo does not have to be as daunting as it seems. So take that leap. Please follow, like, or share. Buy us a coffee on your favorite listening platform. We can also be found at www.ifmargaritascould.com. And cheers to you, Pam, and cheers to everybody out there. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.